Hi there, welcome to my YouTube channel. And if you came to this channel from a link from LinkedIn to view my project, now welcome, and I really appreciate you taking the time to dive in to the detail of what I've done in about a weekend. So I'm going to dive into the architecture first, show you a very high level document that I created for the architecture. The platform I created is a recruitment platform. I haven't completed the whole solution. I am planning to complete the whole solution, having a mobile side of it as well. I started with a website with a middle layer, and I also have a SQL database. My intention was also to use .NET MAUI from a mobile perspective, and then also to use MongoDB for NoSQL database type of data. I haven't got to that part. So I've developed something, a website in Angular 20 front end with TypeScript. I connect from Angular to an API layer, which I created in .NET Core 9 using C# and the MVC pattern. And I also deployed it, created Docker files for each of those components, or rather say containers, which is running currently on Docker Desktop on my Windows machine. The same architecture can be taken and deployed to AKS, EKS, and GKE in the different cloud environments. But you can also run it on-prem if you create your own Kubernetes services. Minikube is probably not the best. That's only for testing purposes mainly. But a proper Kubernetes service implementation would be required. So I'm now going to jump into view mode so I can show you the architecture and then show you the code and actually how the application is running. So I hope you enjoy this video. I created a very high-level solution architecture document. Didn't feel the need to go into too much detail. The purpose of this document is basically to create a very highly scalable, cloud-agnostic recruitment platform. Like something like Indeed, with a responsive web application, web portal, mobile application, and a back-end application that can support the local and global job markets, including remote jobs. The high-level architecture means that you'll have job seekers that will log into your application, register, log in. You also have administrators, and you also have employers and recruiters that can actually advertise their roles. I haven't gotten to a certain part, and at the end of this architecture document, which I'm going to really scroll very fast, show you what I've actually built. The intention is to build this complete application. The website layer, obviously a website front end, was developed in Angular 20. My intention is still to actually write a mobile application with the same functionality using .NET MAUI. Now, even though I haven't got so much experience in .NET MAUI, I played around with it. I am intending in the next few weeks to actually create the front end on .NET MAUI as well, because I have a lot of ASP.NET experience, and it's basically similar type of patterns they use. The API layer was created using the MVC pattern. And then my intention was for unstructured data to be stored on MongoDB, which I didn't get to yet. I have MongoDB experience, but I haven't got to that yet. But I created a SQL database, and I'll show you that as well, which stores the users, the jobs, the job applications. And I didn't get to subscription and billing, but this is more or less what I was planning for. So this whole solution architecture document goes into detail on what the front-end layer, the component breakdown of the front-end layer and what it contains. The middle layer, also using OAuth, which I played around with Google and with LinkedIn, but I haven't implemented the final solution for that. Only a normal login, which stores an encrypted password with hashing algorithms in the database. And I'll show you how that looks like. Then I created the middle layer obviously is .NET Core. The application services is completely microservice architecture and can run monolith on its own. So user service, job service, and job application service, which I created and finalized, is running independently as microservices on Docker. Backend, I haven't Dockerized the backend yet. At the moment, it's running a SQL service on my machine, and I haven't done Mongo. When I go into the detail, the deployment strategy at the end of the day was to deploy this anyway, to be able to deploy this on on-prem Kubernetes services, on Azure AKS, on AWS EKS, and Google GKE. My intention is also to create Terraform scripts that will be able to support all of these environments. I haven't done that yet, but I have done that in real life in one of my roles I had in the past. I've got a lot of DevOps experience with YAML scripting, Bash scripting, PowerShell scripting, and Python, and used all of those to be able to create CI/CD pipelines, which I have extensive experience in. I also have extensive experience in development languages, mostly C#. I've built Java code, I've done Python, and I've played around with website frameworks like Angular and ASP.NET. I did play around with React Native. I did play around with some of the other website like PHP. But my favorites obviously is Angular and ASP.NET. Solution should be scalable, multi-tenant support, and configurable, and will be able to run basically anywhere. My next step was to create detailed logical architecture, database schema, the API contracts, any security types of things and roles that I've already created. And then my intention was to create the DevOps pipelines, which I haven't done yet, but I know I can do that very quickly. The actual tiered architecture looks like this. It's got a client layer, API layer, all the microservices basically running in Docker containers, and then my data layer as well, which also can be containerized. The detail around this: website, homepage, login, job details, apply for a job, employee dashboard, and an admin console. I'm not going to go into the detail here. This is the detail of the application layer, user service, what it needs to entail, job service, and you can see this is how microservices supposed to be implemented with functionality of a specific business function in play. So user service will only manage users. Job service will only manage jobs. And obviously there's a lot other that I haven't even got to yet. The SQL Server Relation Database, what it will have and all the information about it. MongoDB, obviously the infrastructure layer, where it can be deployed, how it can be deployed, what can be used for monitoring, secret manager, ingress services, a service mesh if we have to install it locally. And obviously the high-level architecture is the app basically talking to APIs and to the SQL database, Mongo database, and even notifications to send out emails. What I have created as a logical architecture is something like this. The web application talking via an API gateway, which I have not created. Obviously, I'm only running this locally, but the API gateway would have taken care of the integrations to the application layers, which is microservices that would run on Kubernetes services. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. There's definitions of how the user service needs to look like, all the APIs that I need to create. But this is what I ended up with on one weekend. I've got a registration page, I've got a login page, a landing page that will show the job listing, and then the job application page where I can apply for a job. All these services, these three services runs independently on Docker. They have a shared model app, and I'll show you how I've done that in .NET. And that shared model basically shares the models, because some of these models needs to be shared in multiple services, because there's references between those models, and that's why I use the shared model project to do that. And this is what we can jump into now, and I'm going to show you the front end, the back end, and then how it runs. So this is my Angular code. Very simple. Everything in one repo. And just so you note, I actually use Azure DevOps quite a lot, extensively. And I use Azure repos to publish all my code. It's in a private repository at the moment, so I haven't shared the code because I want to finish this whole platform. Maybe one day someone wants to buy it from me. Don't know. But at the moment, this is what I've done in less than 3 days. The front end, basically, as you can see, this is Angular. It's got its main TypeScript file using Bootstrapper. Obviously, this is how Angular works, but I'm going to go into the pages that I created. I use an app router to route all my pages. And you can see here that it creates routes for a shell component, or a home component, login, register, landing page, and the job view and the job application component. So this is how far I got from a front-end perspective. I've got authorization that I already created. Obviously, the authorization service is used to be able to log in a user and also then show the landing page. I'm not going to go into too much detail there. The layout's got a shell. Obviously, the shell includes a few modules, material modules that I use for site navigation and toolbars and icons and all of those things and buttons, just to make it a little bit more viewable. I'm probably not the best UI style sheet creator. But obviously, I do have a style sheet for this as well. And in my HTML page, which is basically the main content in the shell that it will display. So on the right hand side, there will be navigation buttons for login and register, and obviously also log out once you've logged in. And there will be a home page that you can create. And the landing page will only display after you've logged in. If you are logged in, it will display the landing page, which is the career site page. If you look at the pages that I created, obviously there's a home page. Only say, well, welcome to this recruitment platform. Let me go to the login page. There's a login page with an email, password, and submit button. Obviously, the code behind that supports a login function that will call the API which is the user API. I know this is not good practice. Put this into a configuration file. Rather, obviously, they'll do that wrapping up of this APIs and the way the APIs is being called. Put this rather in a config file so we can change this without recompiling. Obviously, this is not the best way of doing it. Then I created, obviously, a register. Obviously, the register is your full name. Put your details in. There's a few details that I left out for now, just to get the application to run. Obviously, the function to register a user will call the user service, which is a microservice, to register. Remember, I'm not going to go into each and every function otherwise this video is going to be really long. So I want to jump through this very quickly. We've got a landing page, and obviously the landing page, on initialize of that landing page, it will get all the jobs, and then it will display it on the screen. There's also a page. You can go from one page to the next page. You'll see that. I'll show that to you. And when you open up a job, you click on a button. Obviously, the button in here on the HTML side, you've got the button, the view button, against a specific job. And then you can view the job. This is the HTML side of it, where you can view the job. There's the code that supports it. And when you view the job, it gets the job with the job ID that you clicked on the previous page. It will get the job from this job service, which is also a separate microservice. And you can also click apply. So when you click apply, it will actually go to the apply HTML page, where you can fill in all your details. You'll see there's details of a cover letter that you can add, personal details, add your certificates, and then obviously add your employment history. So you can go up to this runs in an array that will be saved on database eventually, that I also will show you. So when you apply, it will submit the data into the database. And that's how far I got with this side of it. So now let's jump into the actual C# code. So the C# code, I created a solution, .NET solution for it. If you look at the .NET solution file, you see that this solution file reference user service, job service, job application service, and then a shared model. So let's jump into the shared model first. The shared model, maybe I could have structured this a little bit better into a folder, but this contains basically how I created this is using the EF migration entity framework to model my database. So I created the classes first, and then I create and update the SQL database automatically from code. So code first, then the database. It creates a database out of this code. There's the employment history, there's the job details, and obviously it could have been much more information. Job application, so when a user apply, you can see there's also relationship built in, foreign keys for a user, a list of employment histories, a list of education, certificates as a normal string, and also the actual resume that you upload will be streamed into a blob in the database as a byte array. There's the user details for login. It's actually the roles, basically. It can either be a job seeker, a company user, or an admin. Users itself, it's got user obviously belongs to those roles, multiple roles if you can. And very limited information when it comes to the user. Obviously the password is hash, and it will be nullable for OAuth. There's the user role. All of these are basically tables that's created within the database. But this solution doesn't get built. This could get referenced within the other applications. So each application, like the user application, user service, you'll see they all start the same way. You'll start up, basically run the program, will run the startup, and the startup will basically add all the configuration that's needed. So you'll run through here the options that's needed. You need to make sure that you have the JSON serializer option selected to null. Need to add an open API so that we can also create a Swagger page. I haven't gone that far yet. Also need to add the add CORS. The policy basically needs to allow for the web application which runs on a port 4200. This is where the Angular application runs, to allow that it can actually call the service. I also created a database connection, which is stored in the app settings. And you'll see there, I'm not going to go through the password here, but this is my connection string that it uses for that. Now, very quickly, the migrations gets automatically created. If you know .NET EF migrations for Entity Framework, in .NET Core is actually super efficient and creates and updates the database by just a simple few commands. I created a controller. Like I said, the model is inside, all the models inside the shared models project. In my project files, you'll see this is where I actually reference that. In all the services, it references the model so that it can create the models that's needed. You'll see that there is a model, but it's for the app DB context. This is what .NET uses to connect to the database and also create the model relationships inside the auto model creating. And I'm not going to go through the migrations code because this is auto-generated. But the code that I've generated basically is the user controller, and the user controller contains, so there's a user that you can get the users by an ID that you pass through, and that will basically just get that user and will return that user. You've got a create user, which is a post command. You've got an update user, which you need to pass the ID through. You've got a register user that will register the user, and it will hash the password using password hash. That is part of the library of .NET. And then you can also delete a user. You can log in as a user. See, this will do a little bit more than just a normal post. It will log in the user, identify the user. It will unhash the password, verify that the password is valid. And then it will send, obviously, a return OK if it did validate the user correctly. It's user roles, APIs, which I'm not using at the moment to create roles. And then there's a roles API as well, which I'm not actually using right now. That is the user service. Then we have a job service created on the same basis. Okay, all of these applications run the same patterns. The difference is the job controller has got a post of creating a job, get all the jobs, and get a specific job. So all of these is basically getting the job itself. And then the job application service is actually when you apply for a job. That's just the DB context. The controller basically has an apply. When you apply for a job, you need to pass through a JSON file, which is basically part of the body, to be able to create a job. And from the front end, it actually pass through that JSON and it gets obviously added to the database. That gets saved. I could have done a little bit better job in exception handling at the moment. Remember, as I said, this took me about 2 days, 8 hours a day, maybe a little more. That's why I said less than 3 days to create all of this. And I also created, for the user application, I created a Docker file for it. This Docker file can be deployed. It will run on that, on this port. It also needs to copy the shared project because of the shared models that we use in the various services. And this is a full implementation of the Docker container. This will run, deploy the Docker container locally. The same, I've done the same with a job Docker file for the job service. Exactly the same. Very easy, very simple. The same with the job application, the Docker file to be able to do that. My intention is to still write a Terraform scripts to be able to deploy this automatically through pipelines. But I know I am confident in DevOps, so much so that I can do that very quickly. I'll probably do that in a follow-up video. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop this video and I'm going to run this application and show you how it runs. So before I show you the actual run of the application, I'm going to show you my desktop Docker, which actually runs WSL Linux environment on my Windows machine. I've got a job application service. Let's start that. I've got a job service. Let's start that. And I've got a user service. Let's start that. Okay, so these services are running now, and it's available on those ports, which is configured on my Angular application to look at these ports for the various services. What we will do now is we will jump over and run the application, the Angular application, that will talk to these job services. So very simply, just going to go to my Angular application and just run ng serve. There's obviously many ways to start up your application. I could have also gone through my debug. I'm not going to obviously debug it right now. It's going to ng serve and run. That will build the application, and then it will start up wherever this is hosted. So control, press the button. I'm going to bring that over and try and fit it into the screen here, so you can see the application running. You see, as I'm already logged in, and it already shows me the career tab. If I click career tab, it took a little while to actually get the data back. I think it just started up my SQL Server for the first time. But this is all the careers, and you can see I can also page to the next button, to the previous button. I know it's not as fancy as what I could have done it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out, and I'm going to log in and show you. Now I hope I remember the password that I created it with. Yes, okay. So that will automatically then log you in. I could have created a login, a pop-up, but this will automatically take you and open the careers page for you. I can then go to any of these careers and just go view the career, click there. Create a little bit of a style sheet here with the career information. This is not real careers. This is not real careers. This is made up careers. Introduction, the purpose of the role, objective, detail, minimum requirements. And I can from here then apply for the role. could have also done a little bit more fancier. Yes, this is my name. If you are part of my solution architect as a subscriber here, this is who I am. I can put in a cover letter here. I can put in my personal details, list my certificates. I still needed to finish that. I can upload a file, and I can click here, upload a file, which is my resume. Put in my job title. I'm not going to put in all the details. And yes, I didn't actually do validations around this, and it's very actually simple to do this. Wrote, just going to need to be able to complete all my details. My achievements. All right, so I'm going to submit my application, see what happens. Application's submitted successfully. And then OK, then it goes back to the career site. Yes, I could have had a nicer message, which I'm going to do. But this is mainly how the application is running. I'm going to switch over now, and I'm going to drag in my SQL server and show you the SQL services. On SQL, I've got a recruitment database. And obviously, I've got all the users in here. And ignore this one. This is not my real password. But you can see the password that was created for this is basically hashed. You see, you can't see the real password. This is anyway not a password I use. So you can try and use it. I don't use this password. This is really just for testing purposes. And then I've got the jobs. And obviously, if I select the jobs, this is all the jobs that I created. This is all the job applications. See the latest one. I created a few now just to play around with it. And you'll also see when you create the jobs, it will create it will relate back to your employment history, your education, and basically this is the database. So if you are interested in contacting me, I'm going to put the solution architect email address in the description below. If you want to work with me, want me to work for you or with you on a project, contract, permanent role, obviously I've said on LinkedIn, I'm looking for a permanent role where I can work remote. That's my first price. I'm willing to relocate to America if I get a job sponsor. I'm also willing to work in a hybrid type of mode. I stay in Port Elizabeth in South Africa, and I'm not too far away from Cape Town, which is about 6.5 an hour, 7 hours drive. But obviously you're not going to do that every day. But I'm willing to travel once a month and to be in the office as long as you require me to be there. Unfortunately, it's very expensive to fly back and forth to Johannesburg, which is where most of the roles are. But if there is a remote role that you can offer me, please contact me. And like I said, I would love to work in America. Obviously, that's a dream, but it's a far-fetched dream. I used to live in Ireland for 5 years. I worked for a very large American company for the sister company that was sold out just the year that I left in 2020 to TCS. I worked for them for 5 years for a very, very large American insurer company. And you can look me up on LinkedIn, and then you can contact me if you are interested in working with me. Right. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've got the detail. If you need detail, let me know in the comments below. And I hope you enjoyed this show and tell. I'll see you in the next one.